I'm Harry Reardon. Ant, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ant Smith, retired now. Used to be a software engineer. Now I'm retired. I'm doing loads of work with the writing and the photography, which is kind of like a happy life.
Okay. And what's your story?
Okay, so in terms of the specifics as to why we're talking, I moved to London because my wife got a really good job down there, and I don't think work should be the only thing you live for. So I spent like 20 years in the evenings being a performance poet, which was a lot of fun. But writing a lot of quite kind of jokey, serious poetry, attacking issues, making people answer those big life questions. And then all of a sudden, I found that I'd written a poem that was very, very autobiographical. It felt suddenly it was my turn, and I couldn't like turn the spotlight on all these big questions of life without turning it on me as well. So I wrote a poem about this size anxiety, having lived my entire life in fear of the fact I was small. And having written the poem, it sort of felt it felt like I would have a lack of integrity if I didn't actually then go out and perform it. And as soon as I did, there was it just avalanched really because nobody was talking about male body shaming or size anxiety in an open and honest and frank way. So I got taken on this years long, unintended but happy to support campaign for reducing size anxiety and waking men up to the fact that we suffer from body shaming issues as well. In a nutshell.
Yeah. No, it was good we got straight into it. How old were you when you first realized your penis was smaller than average?
So in turn, I think I probably always knew subconsciously. I was a very, very shy young man. But we didn't have the internet and all of the rest of it. And back in those days, men didn't talk, so I didn't know what it was that was screwing me up. I don't know if you did when you were a teenager. I just knew I was screwed up, really. But then, sort of more in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, when I went away to university and you're in that whole hotbed of tussling testosterone, it became clear to me, and I consciously realised that I had a small yeah.
And how did that affect you growing up?
Well, like I say, I was a very shy individual. So when we were doing PE at school, it was all shared common changing room, open showers, that kind of thing. And I'd be the one in the corner that was changing into me football shorts while I still had my overcoat on because I just didn't want to be exposed in anything. I didn't know why I didn't want to be exposed. I'd never worked that out in my own head. I just knew that I didn't want people to see me.
Yeah, no, of course. No, it's quite a natural fear being younger anyway, isn't it? I think. And then when you've got that on top, and I've got to ask exactly how how big, how small is it?
It's difficult finding the right words, isn't it? As soon as you said how big is it, you think, oh no, that's there's judgment laid
Yeah, because
yeah.
I want to, you kind of want to be subtle about it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, no, we all want to know. We all kind of,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
So the size, whether you judge it to be big or small, is 4 inches in operating mode and probably an inch in normal mode.
okay, that's yeah. So
Not that small, you're thinking.
I'm like,
It's already. I know lots and lots and lots of men, because lots of people write to me, having been on the news, done the poem, written a book. Lots of men. You don't even have to have a small penis to have small penis anxiety.
Very true. Yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah. No, I was thinking when you said four, I'm thinking that's four of mine. So yeah, like uh, you've previously spoken about being teased about it and the embarrassment of having condoms slip off because it's so small. How did that affect you?
Oh well, so I haven't. I don't suppose I've had double figures of people that I slept with. That I've been intimate with. I mean, a very small number of people. So and that's that's not a fact in isolation, because there's a whole life that goes around those intimacy moments. So I think I've been very aloof and not open to relationships with people. I met my wife when I was 30. I mean, we've been married. Well, we've just had our 24th anniversary, as it happens.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. But 30 from my generation, that's quite old, really, to settle down into a fixed relationship. Probably nowadays, people are getting into their fixed relationships that bit older because they're leaving home older, etc. But from my generation, to spend the whole of my 20s shunning people, not letting them in, not. I didn't believe that I was lovable, so I was incapable of loving others.
That's tough. It is tough. And what is the because obviously you say that, but then when you've been with a woman that's not your wife, what's the reaction been? When you're in the moment, things are different and things are heating up. Like, what's the initial reaction?
So I think there's all kinds of statistics kicked about, and when you're talking about the whole rutting game, when you're down the nightclub trying to score, and what you're looking for there is something that's purely physical. You end up in what is essentially a one night stand. Well, a lot of one night stands end up being one night stands. Yeah, I mean, and not just because I had a small, but because I had completely no real confidence, and therefore no real ability to put another person at ease and make sure that they enjoy the situation. If you're full of anxiety, and you're rushing to get through a thing, it's not an enjoyable thing, then it's not the size of it's the approach to the performance that has the bigger impact.
And that's something that's kind of been sort of been taken out because of the effect of porn in our culture, because it's so easily accessible and it's everywhere that you
Yeah,
know
yeah. It's not just a matter of it's not just a matter of porn either. So it's been a couple of years since I've done an interview like this, because frankly, the questions started to get a bit boring. But also, you got to keep it in context. Your whole life can't be about dealing with your anxieties. You have to get on with your real life as well. But when I was right in the heart of the whole campaign, therefore very aware. It's like, if you buy a red car, suddenly all you see is red cars. Well, when I was on the campaign, I would notice every day on some television program. I mean, it could be bargain hunt in the afternoon. There would be some passing reference to how size matters. We are inundated with this particular judgment. Yeah. And porn is just the most obvious example of it, really.
yeah.
You hear it constantly. It's on the billboard, it's on the television constantly.
And you've been involved in various different projects aiming at raising awareness of small penis acceptance. What made you decide to embrace your small penis as something positive?
So it started out by that thing about needing to look after my own integrity, and having written the poem about having to perform it. And then once I performed it, I started getting people like the reporters from the Independent or researchers for This Morning saying, "Okay, would you come and talk to us about the importance of penis size anxiety?" And every single time a question like that arose, and indeed with your own, I had to sort of weigh it up and think, well, if I shut up now, if I don't have this conversation, I'm adding to the problem, you know. So it's kind of like you just had to, I didn't start a campaign and plan it out and say I'm going to do that interview, I'm going to be on that television show, whatever. Just people kept asking me, and the reasons to say yes were always stronger than the reasons to say no, however difficult it might have been to talk about this stuff.
That's it. When you talk about having anxiety, is that how did you manage that over time? Did you find different? Did you find any methods that worked for you? Did you find breathing techniques, meditation? You know.
Well, yeah, I was born in 1966. After England won the World Cup, and never managed to do so again. And I grew up. Through the 80s. I bottled all my anxiety up and pushed it down and tried not to think about it and ignored the consequences of it on my life, really.
You've organized an event known as the Small Penis Party, aimed at encouraging body positivity for people with small penises. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was I was in a London club which has since closed down. As a poet, I got a history of closing venues down, but that's all good for the mythology. Um, so so I wrote the poem, and then I went on loads of international media, and it was just building to some sort of a crescendo. And I've been speaking to so many people that I decided to write the book, The Small Penis Bible, and sort of, partly as sort of kind of a launch for that, partly to, it just seemed like the right natural next step to take, really. And so it was an evening of musicians and poets and comedians that were all focused on material that dealt with this sort of issue, whether it was directly penis size anxiety or anxiety itself or mental health or body shaming. Didn't really matter. It was just a hodgepodge, and a reason for a group of people to get together to say we're not going to be embarrassed about this and we're not going to perpetuate what's going on here. I remember one of the helpers that came down who didn't really know what all the ins and outs were. We were just chatting, and I mentioned to her, how pervasive all of these issues are, and how people will on the motorway when they get cut up, they'll shout, "Oh, he's got a small penis," and how unhelpful that is by saying that all the bad attributes of the person are down to biology. Well, no, Hitler said that, yeah, and we don't really want to live in that kind of world. It's not about eugenics. You're not evil because of your biology. And this person didn't absolutely never realised that just by saying that small dick wanker, that they were adding to the problem. And it's a problem that over 40% of men suffer some degree of anxiety about the penis, mostly about its size, some of them because it's bent or whatever, but nearly half of all men have this anxiety, and yet every day everybody is making them feel worse about it. People are killing themselves because of this, and it's because you say "small dick wanker" when someone cuts you up on the road.
Yeah, it, it is. It's a horrible thought. Can you recite one of your poems?
So I could recite the poem that kicked it all off if you like. It takes 4 minutes.
That's completely fine. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to hear it.
Okay. It's called Shorty.
Okay.
I have a tiny cock like a crooked little finger. Everybody else's dick is inevitably bigger. If 6 inches an average can truly be believed, someone here in this room is twice the size of me. If you can do your algebra already, you will know 4 inches is the maximum my dick will ever go. For the engineers among you, I'll express my ratio. My little 1 inch wonder up to 4 times it can grow. He's got a little willy, a tiny baby dick, but at least he's got the balls to admit to it. Yeah, he's got a little willy, a tiny baby dick, but at least he's got the balls to admit to it. My pubes are even longer, they make a comfy little nest, with a little acorn sat upon the very crest. Rummage in my fly, and wish that I were blessed, searching frantically, I recover just ahead, and get a little piss strip upon my fingertip. There's absolutely nothing there for me to get a grip, and if I sit to pee, I must be wary of my jet. The angle of my dangle means my trousers may get wet. I wank it with one finger if you really want to know. And no, I can't imagine the feeling of deep throat. Oh, when I look down, I can still clearly see my toes, but my little willy hides beneath my belly folds. Sometimes it is inverted, even when it isn't cold. Like a little turtle up inside of me it goes. And girls, they like to tell me, it's such a cute surprise, until I have to tell them I left the condom stuck inside. He's got a little willy, a tiny baby dick, but at least he's got the balls to admit to it. Yes, he's got a little willy, a tiny baby dick, but at least he's got the balls to admit to it. I'm hung like Mickey Mouse, I'm glad now to admit, for the greater pain exists in propagating myths. According to the internet, real men have massive dicks, and you are next to useless if you're only average. So, if you're set with 5 or 6 and feel the relief, you no longer have to hide it in shame and misery, for I'm living proof you got way more than you need, for even with 4 inches, my girl's in love with me.
Absolutely fantastic. And I think we just found our theme song for the next 20 questions with. That was absolutely fantastic. Can I ask what the reaction to that is to people that don't know what's about to happen?
Oh well, the room falls apart as a rule, really, because I mean, what I'm doing there through 3 quarters of that point is just completely reclaiming all of those little insults and digs that you hear as you're growing up, and which with a guy with penis-sized anxiety stuck in my brain, you know.
Yeah.
And so everybody said this stuff. Oh, you use tweets. Oh, you wank it with one thing. You know, as a real piece of what they used to call bants, but is actually psychological torture. So it's really, really, really strong because so many people suffer the anxiety, and everybody's heard this stuff, and it's a complete, unabashed, shameless reclaiming that just it just blows all of the anxiety out the room when I perform it.
That's absolutely phenomenal. What was your wife's reaction to hearing that for the first time?
So I mean, I got an amazingly supporting wife, and you know, I'd done poems in the past about things like joyful childlessness, because we've never had children. We neither of us wanted to have children. We had that conversation early in the relationship, which I think a lot of people don't. They just stumble along doing what life expects of them. But I think it's worth working out where the boundaries are. Um, and like I say, some of the points I've done about how much I love her have been quite embarrassing for her. So I kind of felt it was my turn, and she actually contributed in the chorus. It's for me the key, the killer, most important line is that. But at least he's got the balls to admit to it.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the first draft. It was only by reading her what I'd produced and talking through it that line came out. So so what she thought was she helped me finish it, really. But the other thing is, one of the things that I realised at one point was that everybody has anxiety of some form. Everybody is vulnerable in the bedroom. Yeah, whoever you are, there's always one thing that a person could say that would absolutely crush you, crush your spirit, crush your soul. And you know, so the thing is, when you're in an intimate and vulnerable position, you got to realize so is the other person, and they're actually really, really wrapped up and concerned about their vulnerabilities, and they don't get. They look at you. It's not even small, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's a tremendous, tremendous support and a tremendous creative help as well.
Can you? You said you've made some poetry for your wife. Would you be able to share a little bit of that with us?
Yes, I know exactly what that would be. Just give me 1 second. So I'm looking on my website where most of my poetry is, which is antsmith.net.
Good
And
plug.
well, I suppose slip that in there. MNOP. There it is. It's March NSF. Come on. I'll just give you a little blast of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
She loves my spunk, my woman does. She loves the taste, she loves the luck, she loves the spray, she loves the flood, she loves to feel it fill her up. She licks her lips, she rubs her tom, she makes a meal out of my cum. Thinks my scrotum's a magic bag, made to please and feed this lass. Endless torrents of top cock snot, she turns the tap and downs a lot, and this we both agree upon, a little cannibalistic fun. Better down her hungry throat than up inside her fertile cunt.
Wow, that was not what I was expecting at all.
That's kind of abridged, but that's about our, as I was saying, our understanding that we're here to make the most of our lives and not to add to the world's woes by creating more life, you know. And it's kind of dark, but it's kind of joyous at the same time. So not exactly a love poem, but
Well, I'll be honest. I
the only
thought
one I could do with my wife.
that's where you were going. I thought you were going for romance, and you sideswiped that. You sidestepped that magically. But yeah, no. Okay. Again, what was your wife's reaction to the first version of that song?
Well, I suppose she'd be worried at first that it was just too much for people, but she's got a great sense of humor. She's like my barometer. Sometimes she'll tell me when I'm saying too much, but she's like a perfect barometer because she accepts quite a lot.
That's fantastic. You've written a book called The Small Penis Bible.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us, please?
So, I mean, I was doing all these interviews and stuff. And I've always wanted to be a writer, of course, and I was accepting redundancy from work. So instead of working for the last 6 months, I spent my time writing, and it's really just one person's views on all this stuff. So there's a chapter that just brings together everything that I wrote for the media, there was a story about a lad in Japan who killed himself because of small penis anxiety. So there's a point for him in there. But then I go through all the classics of does size matter? Does size matter to women? What if it's small? How do you enlarge your penis? Um, how to get over shame, how to find confidence, what are the issues, what is a micro penis, what does small penis mean in sex, in terms of toys and kinks and performance anxiety. Every aspect of the penis that I could think of, there's something in there. And it's just self-published, and then people who just want to read something from a guy who's made it into his 50s, unlike the lad in Japan who didn't even make it into his 20s. How do you live with that anxiety? The answer there, but there is no silver bullet. There is no single uh, sentence that can solve these issues. So it's really a ramble through a life that will strike a chord with anybody who's had any kind of penis size anxiety for certain, and probably with anybody who's had any kind of body anxiety.
And what's the reaction to the book been from those that have read it?
Um, So I'm betting that a number of the sales have been by people who think that'll make a great joke present. I mean, I don't know. There's no way of finding the statistics on that. But I regularly get emails from around the world from people. It's from people who care, who are not just having a laugh. It's universally positive, and I do get emails from people saying that they were in a very very dark place, and just being able to know that they're not alone. There are other people. That's a crazy thing. 40% of us suffer some kind of anxiety about our cocks, and we all think that we're the only one. We don't talk about it because it's just us. And that book being in existence is really just saying, no, you're not alone. We're all of us the same. Actually, we're all of us vulnerable.
Yeah. And so you get people contact you from around the world. Like, how far has this reached?
So I don't think anybody in Antarctica has bought a copy. But all over. I mean, I've done national radio interviews in Sweden, Canada, Australia, Italy, Portugal, England, obviously, and those are just the places that I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And that speaks more, probably speaks less to me and the charm of my words, and more to the fact there are so few people prepared to talk about this, but so many people who want to.
Absolutely. And you were previously hired by a blood testing company to help them advertise with the slogan, "There's nothing wrong with a little prick." How did that come about, and what was the experience like?
That was a real hoot. So I'd done about 3 years of really intense media interviews, like doing an interview in the morning before going to work, slipping another one in over lunchtime, and it's completely doing my head in. And, and then towards the end of all of that, this company came along and said, "We'll give you a decent amount of money if you'll let us put a photograph of you on 3 billboards in London for 1 week."
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, okay, I've done 3 years, all my own effort, all draining my energy, for nothing at all. So it'd be nice to buy a new camera. So I said yes. So then, me and my wife, the guy who was dreaming up the marketing campaign, and his cameraman, 4 of us, just walked around various locations in London, like down on the Thames, so you could see the Houses of Parliament behind me. When they were ready to take a photograph, I'd hold up a sign that said, "There's nothing wrong with a little prick," and they'd take the photo. The whole thing took 3 or 4 hours. There was one point where there was a troop of really finely turned out RAF, young RAF officers who were obviously off to some do or other, virtually marching past us. And you could just see, you just catch their eyes and walk past and see the slight grin on their face as they thought this was a really, really funny thing. And that made it really work. I think humour's critically important. I think humour heals really, and it was a really humorous situation because you don't see that openness of that statement anywhere, and it was an absolute delight. Yeah, so we had a really good time doing the campaign. I got a new camera, and it just meant that a few more people were having an important the joke of it kicked off, not just the conversation that the company wanted about their drugs, but kicked off a more important conversation about it's okay to talk about this stuff. It's okay to laugh about it, but it's okay to talk about it as well.
Absolutely. And what was your experience with This Morning like?
Well, typical, the television's a machine. It just churns through its agendas without really stopping to say it's got no subtlety really. So so it's completely. So they had little banners running across the screen talking about micro penises, and I don't. Whatever you think about the categorization of micro penis, which I think is really unhelpful, but that scientifically it's a penis that's less than 7 centimeters in its erect state. I don't have a micro penis, but that didn't stop the television people putting that little banner up, I suppose, because it's gonna. What's more important to them is catching attention than sharing truth. So I felt it was really. It had no depth, it had no accuracy, but it did mean that the important conversation was going to many millions more people than I could ever have reached. So it was in absolute terms of what it's important to understand and say, it's really unhelpful. But in terms of just getting that basic idea of being open and transparent about what makes us vulnerable into millions of homes, I was very very happy to do it, and very pleased that they asked me not once but twice.
Oh, wow. And you spoke about the different techniques that people use to lengthen their penis, like using weights. Um, can you sort of say a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay, so if you start hanging weights off your cock, you're going to cause damage to the capillaries that feed the erectile tissue. I mean, you're not likely to actually snap your cock off, but you could well snap those internal capillaries and do yourself real damage. So don't do that. Uh, the fact of the matter is, I think through a combination of medical grade traction devices used under the direction of a qualified medical practitioner and weight loss, you could add some two or more centimeters to the length of your penis. Yeah, and that's about it. So if you get a little bit fitter, and if you're really concerned, you work with a medical practitioner. Maybe you can gain as much of as an inch down there. If you
Wow.
take any other approach whatsoever, you're going into a world of snake oil and charlatans who are going to be telling you that 6 inches, which is above the world average, is a small penis, and you must pay them thousands of pounds. And you'll end up with no real gain, maybe a half a centimeter or whatever, but certainly not something that's going to satisfy you. Because really, you gotta fix your mind. You've got to realize that with 7 billion people on the planet, What's important is the things that make you different, not the things that make you the same. You don't want to. You will not be happy, whatever you do to your penis. If you manage to make it average, or even a tiny bit above average, you're not going to be happy about that, and you're only just going to enter the pool of average. Own who you are, whatever that is. And there are plenty of partners who either don't care about penis size or prefer a small penis. Maybe a third of women have a preference for a larger penis, but the penis isn't the only thing in the relationship. So even those women who have a somewhat of a preference are actually more interested in can I actually bear to sit on a settee night after night watching the same drivel on the television with this person?
Yeah.
The act of penetration with your cock, even in sex, is only one tiny little bit of it, and sex is only one tiny little bit of the relationship that you're in. Maybe I lost my way in whatever your question was. That all seemed quite important.
No, 100%. No, honestly, it's good to hear. It's nice that, like you say, you're open and you're honest, and you're making a statement, you're making a point, and it's a conversation that it needs to be said, and I'm here for it. Like, yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic, and the way that you approach the real with the humor sometimes as well. It's a good balance, and it kind of I got off topic, but yeah, no, I'm grateful. Why do you think it's socially more acceptable to shame women for their bodies than men?
So I don't think it is socially acceptable at all. It may appear, but of course, women have been oppressed by the patriarchy forever. And in the Middle Ages, it was expected that a woman would put up with a few slaps from her husband as long as he didn't go too far. I think that the whole society is completely geared towards denigrating women. You think about the number of women who have had Nobel Prizes stolen from them because their male superiors, who have been promoted in whatever research facility because they're not women, who get to say, "No, we won't put your name on this report." Actually, women, it's a nature. It's been the nature of society for a long, long time. The women have been oppressed by men, and body shaming is just one part of that. And I guess what I'm bringing to the equation here is a reminder that a violent and oppressive society oppresses everybody. That those men out there who are body shaming women are the very same men who have got tremendous penis size anxieties themselves. Not to say that, not to make that really, not to say that I'm an oppressor of women because I have a small cock, but the fact of the matter is, it's an oppressive world that we live in, and we are all of us oppressed by it.
Yeah. And what do you think could be done to change the situation? Is it just keep having this discussion?
So I think the fact that you've invited me on, even though it's a couple of years since I had all these conversations, really helps. The first interview I gave on this, it just never happened. Nobody ever had these kinds of conversations that me and you are having now, and yet more and more of those conversations are happening. And more people. I'd like more people. I'd like to be not the only guy that people go to when they need to talk about penis size anxiety. I'd like more guys to step up to the plate and start having these interviews. But it probably, it probably takes a couple of generations to really get there. But I've got friends. I was best man to a family who are very, very dear to me, and when I sit down and have dinner with them and their teenage daughters, I'm tremendously encouraged by what seems to me to be a real wisdom on the shoulders of the youth today that just wasn't there. When I was growing up, I was just an oik. I didn't think I just didn't spend time thinking about the big problems of society. But they're so eloquent, they're so open and awake and alive to mental health concerns and body dysmorphia and all the rest of it. I think in another 10 years, when they're all bringing children up, we'll be living in a very different world, and we just have to keep chipping away until then, just reinforcing the positive behaviours. But I feel it's happening. I can see it coming.
I actually think that's very it's very an interesting way of looking at things, because I remember being younger and hearing people talking about the youth of today and they're so violent and this and that, and it's not the case. The kids that are coming up now, they're so smart
Yeah.
and very concerned about what is happening, the effect that they're having on the planet and the people around them.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
little bit embarrassing, really, to think about how unwoke I was when I was that age, and I don't know if you feel the same.
no, 100%. I have a very self-deprecating sense of humor, and I won't even think about it. I'll just take the mick out of myself, or I'll make a joke. And it didn't click until recently, where I'm working with someone and I made a joke and she flicked me on the forehead. And I was like, what's that about? She's like, every time you say something bad about yourself, you're getting a flick on the head. I'm like, in my own head, it's just a normal
Yeah.
like just joke about yourself. But to her, it's like, no, no, you're talking down on yourself. And it's an interesting way of looking at things. And I don't know, I just think it's such an interesting way that they look at the world. And I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I
You've
do too. I
you've
feel very positive for the future.
Oh, absolutely. You've previously spoken about misconceptions about how long the average penis size actually is, and that this feeds into the stigma surrounding small penises. Can you sort of go on? Can you sort of explain that for us, please?
So I don't quite get the question.
So, the misconception, so the average penis size people think is actually bigger than it is. You previously said
What
earlier
do you
that
think? Yeah, yeah. What do you think the average is?
I'd say I'd say five.
Yeah, pretty good. It's 5.16 inches is the latest that I'd read. Latest varies varies somewhat around the world. Doesn't really vary in relationship to race, because race is a racist concept.
Mm.
But 5.16 average worldwide. I think when I was growing up, I believed that if I was forced to answer the question, I would have thought that 6 inches was average. But I think you see a lot of people, you see little diagram stuff that imply that average is small. Yeah, that actually 8, 9, 10 inches is big, and if it's not big, it's small. But no, actually, 7, 6 is 6, 7 is big. Yeah, 5 is average. Yeah. So and very. I mean, I'm quite amazed actually that you were so right when you said 5 inch. But I just know that there are lots and lots and lots of people out there who simply won't believe that, who believe it is more, and who believe that average is small anyway.
Aren't there some countries where, I mean, because obviously you're going worldwide, but there are certain countries where the average is bigger for their country, right?
Okay, so I don't think we can say that definitively because, first of all, getting these numbers isn't straightforward. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean there are enormous. I mean there are enormous problems with self-selection when you try and do these statistics. Inaccuracy in experimental procedure, etc., etc. Small sample sizes. So when you start breaking the worldwide average down to oh yeah, but the people of Lincolnshire, you don't know. The data falls apart. We don't actually know this.
Yeah.
We have some deep-rooted racist stereotypes that it's very hard to shuckle off. Where we believe everybody in Asia has a tiny cock and everybody in Africa has a massive cock, but this is all colonial thinking. This is just a way of exercising control methods. And even if there were variations, I mean, so if it's 5.16 worldwide, and it turned out, because we had reliable data, which we don't, that it was 6 in England, so what? What does that extra 0.8 actually mean to anybody?
No, of course. I'm just curious. Like I'm also curious about how someone actually goes about getting that data. Like there's what's the method? Are they sending one guy with a tape measure country to country? Like what
Yeah, yeah.
is.
And yeah, so there are all kind. That's the other thing. There are all kinds of different methodologies. Some people just whack a form up on the internet and ask you to fill it in. Yeah,
And then
I
are
mean,
people being honest?
well, exactly. And you'd have thought, given the anonymity of the internet, that's exactly where you can afford to be honest. But it turns out it's exactly where you're not. So
How
it's impossible to know, and the majority of the data is deeply flawed. So really, it's much better to start inspecting. Why do we need to know this?
and how does your wife feel about you being so public with your penis?
I think she's very proud.
That
I guess she understands that it's yeah, it's not something which I invited in, but I just had to keep saying yes, and I think she's proud that I try to have some kind of honesty and integrity in myself, and that I'm uh, trying not to do any, trying to leave the world better than I found it. And I think she does the same in her own ways. I think it just reinforces that it's right that we're together.
do you get people in the uh small penis like community? Do they reach out to you? I don't
Yeah.
know how the best way to word that. Do they reach out to sort of say thank you for talking about it or share their stories?
So I wouldn't. So I mean, there are communities, there are websites and forums and the rest. But then I think the people who reach out to me are more sort of individuals who they know my email address because it's everywhere. Yeah. So I think isolated individuals reach out. There are communities which are very supportive of each other, and I'm no great shakes amongst those communities. There are many other people with more wisdom and finesse in talking about this stuff than me. Yeah. So people do reach out. There are communities, but the communities exist and are valuable despite whether I'm a part of them or not.
And do you have any more small penis related events or projects planned for the?
Uh, no, I mean, it's that thing about I'm not saying no to things, really. It took me a while to get around to saying yes to yourself because there are so many other things that I have to do, and the most important thing is to keep things in context. It's that you worry about the size of your penis in relation to penetrative sex. Penetrative sex is one tiny part of my life, of anybody's life. I got other things to do. So very happy to keep this conversation alive and positive. It's really important to remind people to think about other stuff as well.
Absolutely. And finally, what advice would you give to other people struggling with a small penis or small penis anxiety? People aren't really too sure how to deal with it. Is there anything that you would say?
So the key thing is that thing. Everybody is vulnerable. It's not just you. Don't be so selfish, and remember that you cannot you cannot feel the love of somebody else if you hate yourself. Because if whenever somebody says I love you, you're thinking you can't. I'm unlovable. You're actually denying them. You're putting your problem on them. So So don't hate yourself, because you'll never find anybody who loves you if you do. Yeah, and it's
Excellent.
not all about you.
Thank you so much. Before we do anything, just if you're still watching, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit the bell, like, subscribe, and if you're going to drop a comment, before you do, just take a second, think about what you're going to say. It'll go a long way. I appreciate that. Thank you. And as we leave, can you close us out with a song?
I'll do you one of the love poems I wrote for my wife.
Thank you.
If I could bleed the blue from out of the sky and render life in grey, the whole wide world would understand how I feel when you're away. If I could draw the heat from out of the sun to fuel my furious fire, I feel the world would be undone as you consume my pyre. If I could rip the songs from the throats of birds to forge a symphony, I feel the world would be silenced as you are deaf to me. If I could pluck the heads from every flower and line them up on spikes, I believe the world would be outraged as you are worth such sights. If I could strip the surface from the land, expose the dirt beneath, I know the earth would be ashamed as she's beyond belief.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.